The Taft Museum of Art is Cincinnati's oldest meaningful wooden building. It has been a public museum since 1931 at the death of Mr. and Mrs. Charles Taft, who were our great benefactors. Prior to that, it had been the residence of some of Cincinnati's more memorable citizens. Martin Baum was the equivalent of the mayor of Cincinnati, who built the original core of the house. The next meaningful owner was Nicholas Longworth, who was responsible for a wonderful suite of murals in our entrance hall by Robert Duncanson, an African-American artist. The next owner was David Sinton, whose daughter married Charles Taft. The house being as old and as historic as it is, we treat the house as part of the collection. And it's, you could argue, a blessing and a curse, because it is fragile and it is wooden and it has all those problems that any old house would have. But unlike some places, we are not an historic house museum. We are a museum in an historic house, and there is a difference. In most cases, collectors have put together a collection that usually ends up being dispersed at their demise, or sometimes they would leave the entire collection to a museum. And most museums are encyclopedic in that they collect works of art from all periods of art history. In the case of the Taft, we are one family's collection, a very fine collection, but it's also still installed in a domestic setting. Most art was created for a domestic setting unless it was particularly religious or done or commissioned by the church. And as a result, why you can see art in a domestic setting for which it was created, and that makes the Taft quite unusual, not unique, but it's the small domestic nature of the house and the feeling of being in a residence and seeing wonderful works of art. The Tafts themselves felt that it was very important that they put together a collection of old master paintings, porcelains, and European decorative arts as a basis for the community to study the fine arts with a commercial overtone, in that it would allow the citizens to apply the fine arts background of the museum in their professions. They felt it was important that they collect the finest of materials, which they've done. We only have 700 objects in the collection, but they are first-rate objects, and we have a world-renowned reputation for those who know small art museums. Probably the most important object in the house is an ivory virgin from Saint-Denis in Paris, which dates about 1280. In the eyes of the Metropolitan Museum and the Louvre, it's the most important Gothic sculpture in the world, and it is truly a remarkable piece. To think of something that's that old, that's been through the French Revolution and all the kind of crazy things that have gone on in history, that to a piece to be 800 years old, it's really quite remarkable. The Taft Museum is in many ways a snapshot back in time. It reflects on an air of civility and quality that is somewhat lacking in today's world. Many of the visitors that come to the Taft find this sort of peaceful oasis in an otherwise hectic world. I think it is a survey really of European tastes, which at the time that the Tafts were collecting was the intellectual predominance of the time. They were competing with people like the Frick in New York, Isabella Stewart Gardner, the Gardner Museum in Boston, the Huntington in Pasadena. The Taft Museum is one of the better kept secrets of Cincinnati. I often find the further I get from Cincinnati, the more people know about the Taft Museum. I think because of the quality of the arts that people often discover the Taft and don't understand why they haven't been here before. Particularly visitors who come to the city are always amazed at the quality of the arts in this community.